So we may be smack dab in the middle of the college football season. So many games to talk about, but as always, recruiting does not stop. And we're here today because we're talking about one of the biggest shocks in college football recruiting, really, maybe since the Travis Hunter situation last year. Today, I'm joined by Jonathan Lewis of College Football with Jonathan Lewis. Jonathan, before we jump in here, I want to give you an opportunity to tell everybody who you are. I'm sure they know who you are if they've watched the content on this channel before, but in the event that they haven't, where can they find all of your great content?
College football, Jonathan Lewis on YouTube, and then at College FB Lewis on Twitter, all college football recruiting and good stuff like that.
Yeah. And so, look, today we got to talk about the shock that is the talk of college football right now, and that's the win Miami just got yesterday. The number one defensive back in the nation, the number one cornerback, a top 5 player, Cormani McClain, commits to Miami over the likes of Florida and Alabama. And Jonathan, the interesting thing here is conventional wisdom, maybe for about a month prior to this commitment, pointed everything to Florida. Steve Wiltfong, the god of recruiting. So many of us look at him like as the godfather of recruiting, right? Like his crystal ball carries weight.
Big time.
Florida is where he had it going. Everybody was expecting Florida. Announcement comes, boom, Miami. I want to hear from you, Jonathan. What were you thinking about this? I know you had to have been as surprised as I was, but what is Miami getting in Cormani McClain?
So, first of all, congrats to Miami. Congrats to Mario Cristobal because he just got the biggest recruit of his career, in my opinion. Bringing him over from Lakeland, which is a heavily recruited Florida Gators backyard, essentially. So getting him from there is already big enough. But what do you get with Cormani McClain? A once in a generational cornerback. There's no doubt about that. You're getting a lockdown press man, super intelligent. I mean, there's a whole list. When I watch his film, I could sit here and talk about. You're talking about mainly, in my opinion, what impresses me the most is his instincts and IQ. He can put one on one together at that cornerback position, man. And you're just not going to outwork the dude. It's so easy to get enamored by stats. It's so easy to get enamored by, he plays really good inside shade versus whatever people want to talk about. But when it comes to Cormani, he's humble. He's a hard worker. He plays the position correctly. Like, you know what I mean? So, and when I look at him and look at the film and what he does on film, he jumps out probably as a lockdown man corner more than anybody I've seen since Derek Stingley. There's no doubt, in my opinion. So since 2019, we're talking about high school film coming into college. Before
There's
that,
been a lot of great corners since then.
Of course, there has been. I mean, and another one I compared him to was Vernon Hargraves III, who went to Florida, obviously. And I believe he was out of I can't remember what part of Florida, but I believe he was out of Florida as well. But when you're talking about these guys, man, like 6'2", he runs a 4.05. So not only does he have instincts, the IQ, he knows how to play the position. He can actually play multiple positions, by the way, in the defensive backfield. But obviously, corner is like his thing. The IQ mixed with the 6'2", the 4.5, what's he run in, like, what, 128-inch broad jump? Like, this dude literally is a walking freak of nature playing cornerback. That's exactly what it is. And I know a lot of people will result back to Hunter. Obviously, last year going to Jackson State and talk about, well, what about him? No, it's a different style of play, right? When you pop on the tape, in my opinion, of Cormani McClain, you see a cornerback. You see a guy that you drool over and go, that dude is a day one starter on my team. So with that being said, I feel like that's why he did go to Miami, because he knows going to Miami, he openly said he wants to be a part of a program that's being turned around. So in my opinion, that eliminated Alabama right away. So now you have Florida and Miami. I know he had a personal relationship with Corey Raymond and Billy Napier, which is why I had him going to Florida the entire way with, obviously, Steve Wiltfong. It seems like the entire nation. But, he mentioned DeMarcus Van Dyke, man, DVD, really bringing him in there. And look, I know all about him. I know the potential. Me and you have talked about it. But it's hard to overlook Corey Raymond, the defensive back coach, right, at Florida, and go, really? You want to talk about development, upbringing and all that stuff, and you choose DVD over Corey Raymond? All respects to DVD, man. I give you your respect, but comparing him to Corey Raymond, come on now. Let's be realistic for a minute. But like I said, talked about, being a part of a program that's being turned around. He said he felt comfortable and at home in Miami. And look, at the end of the day, when your mom sends you off somewhere, you know what she's going to say. As long as you feel comfortable, does it feel like here? Does it feel like home? And I feel like that's probably what Mario Cristobal and those guys sold to him. Look, you're at Lakeland, which is in between, obviously, Miami and Gainesville. But at the end of the day, he is more familiar with the Miami area. So it did feel more like home, and they probably used that to their advantage. But I just can't say how much of a grab this is from Mario Cristobal. Like, I get it. He's had a great first year recruiting already, but this is just like the nail in the coffin, man. This is like, holy shit, you got the dude, right? So
Well,
yeah,
so
I
there's a
can't
few
overstate it.
things. Yeah, there's a few things I want to piggyback off of. You took what I was going to say right from me first off whenever you talked about the instincts and everything, but then you combine the instincts with he's 6'2". Now, if there's
Dude,
one thing that you want to ask me right now, hey, what does Cormani need to do? He's a willing tackler, but that's going to have to be something that
yeah,
continues to develop. He's only about 24/7 Sports lists him at 165. That's not abnormal for defensive backs, right? Like
nope,
if we're talking about a defensive back, and my biggest complaint is you should probably spend some time in the college strength and conditioning room. You're with every defensive back that's ever come out, barring like a few, right? That are just like
yeah,
coming out with that level of technique and yoked, like Patrick Surtain, right? Coming out just a
very
bigger
few.
dude. And even then, Surtain needed to get in the weight room. But
Yep,
like Surtain, what you love about Kermani is that he's got the frame to put on weight
yep,
and not diminish any athleticism. Something I wanted to talk about is whenever we're talking about the great recruiting Mario Cristobal is doing, it opens up an interesting conversation. Because when we look around college football right now, you have so many conversations about a Texas A&M. You have so
yep,
many conversations about Oklahoma and how their results on the field are going to affect their recruiting class, right? Oklahoma takes the skid they do.
yep.
People are wondering, how is Brent Venables going to hold the recruiting class together? Much akin to A&M. We see everything going on
Oh
there. It's
my
not just
gosh.
on the field, though, with A&M. It's off the field, right? Where there's smoke, there's fire, literally. Um, People are wondering, how is that going to affect their recruiting? All the while, we have Miami, who hasn't had the season you would want on the field. Jonathan, they're the only team in the top 10 that is a top 10 team in recruiting with less than 20 prospects. They have 18.
Yep.
They are recruiting at an extremely high level. When everybody wants to know how is the wins and loss going to affect your recruiting class, Mario Cristobal is sailing steadily through the night, not worried about what's happening on the field and how it's going to affect his recruiting class. What do you think that does for a program that's trying to turn around, that's really trying to fit who their new guy is leading them? How much confidence does that give a program when they see there might be fire on the football field, but recruiting, what it takes to build, that's going as well as you could possibly hope?
So it comes down to the coach, and I feel like this is a very overlooked thing in college football is how well can this coach come into a program knowing what it's going through and how can they manage their way through it?
Mhm.
What made Nick Saban so great at Alabama was we had a horrendous 2007 season. But look at the 2008 recruiting class, right? So Mel Tucker at Michigan State, certain guys walk into a fire and they walk out of the other side just fine with it because they're not selling their soul. What they're doing is Mario Cristobal showed up at Miami. He knew the task that was given, and he's basically up front, in my opinion, with these players. Look, Miami's not going to be good right now, but do you want to be a part of a culture change? Do you want to be a part of bringing the U back, right? But we're going to do it right this time. I felt like a big staple of the culture change was taken away, the turnover chain. Whether you think that's good or bad for the culture, that's up to you, to decide on that. But I do know this: Mario Cristobal is from Florida. Not Florida, sorry, Miami. He played at Miami, right? He knows the area. He knows how to recruit the area. He knows the high school coaches. So it's easy for him to walk up to a player in Lakeland like Cormani McClain and say, hey, guy, you're special. You could be a day one starter here. You could be a part of something special right down the road. And I get it. Florida's right there with Billy Napier and Corey Raymond and those guys. But at the end of the day, you put on that U film in the early 2000s and late
Oh,
80s, bro, and you're like, that's what we're trying to bring back, that style of football. And, you want to bring in certain characters. You don't want to recruit just anybody. Texas A&M, right? So, like, you want to bring in guys that are going to be leaders. You're going to bring in guys that are humble to a certain extent. So, and I feel like Mario Cristobal is going after a certain style of player, like he is a certain style of coaches. And he's doing what he has to do, man, to get through it. And I feel like he's just not selling something that's not there. He's not going to somebody wanting a brand new car and trying to sell them a used car, right?
Yeah.
Or vice versa. He's saying, look, this is what it is. Give us a year or two or maybe 3, and we'll get this thing turned around and we'll get you developed.
Well, it's just like I forget the guy's name, man. And I was just thinking about him the other day because we watched the movie, my fiance and I, but the guy from The Wolf of Wall Street, the actual man that the movie is based off of.
Oh, yeah. Belfort.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jordan Belfort. Yeah.
Jordan Belfort. Yeah.
He was talking about like what made him so successful. And one of the things he was saying, he's like, okay, well, pretend the stock is this pen, right? And he said, if I'm calling people, if they tell me I'm looking for a pencil, I'm not going to try and sell them on a pen because they're looking for something in specific. He's like, I'm after my target audience, and boom, I'm going for that target audience. I was like, it's so simple, but it makes so much sense, right? Like,
yes.
A phrase that I love is simplicity is the key to brilliance in so many ways, man, in so many ways. And for people wondering, they see me going down. One of the cool things and fun things about this, Jonathan and I, we didn't send each other anything before this. This is all conversation as it's happening, and I'm writing down points. But I want to have 2 points to what you said. One, when you talk about Miami, the brand, and what they were in the 2000s, because some of the recruits at this point, it's crazy to talk about. They might not remember that. They don't remember that, right?
That's why I said put on the film.
That's wild. But for guys like us, right? For our older generation out there, not all big brands in college football move the needle. And what I mean when I say that is when you see the Miami green and orange from the 2000s, you feel some type of way. You either dislike them stridently, or you get a wave of nostalgia, or you're a fan. But it evokes an emotion. Not all major brands in college football can say they move the needle. Miami can. And I think it's profoundly positive that they have a guy that understands Miami culture. And 2, we talk about how good it is, what Mario Cristobal has done, but let's not undersell this, man. Let's not undersell this. He's a great recruiter. He just got a win in Lakeland from Corey Raymond. Now, guys, we know who Corey Raymond is, but in case we have people who aren't as in tune with recruiting, because let's be honest, recruiting is an exhausting thing to follow unless you're obsessive. We happen to be obsessive, but very exhaustive. Corey, I'm just going to talk 5 stars that he has been considered a primary recruiter of per 24/7 Sports. Derek Stingley, Kevin Tolliver, Eli Ricks, Jacoby Stevens, Kayshawn Boutte, Christian Fulton, Sage Ryan, Jamal Adams. Guys such as Greedy Williams are also in that list. They're blue chip 4 stars.
Bro, I'm sorry, but in my opinion, he's
as good as it gets.
He's the top. He's top of the pyramid, bro. There's a lot of guys out there that are great. There is one Corey Raymond.
And it goes to say this, and I've talked about this before, and I'm sure you can attest to this. Whenever I would be talking with some of my buddies who played football, my roommates, and we'd be talking about recruiting, and they'd be like, "Oh, do you think Alabama's going to land?" A great example is Patrick Surtain.
Yeah.
Right. Do you think that? I mean, it's Bama. He'd tell me. He's like, "It's Nick Saban. Why wouldn't he?" And I was like, "Look, I'd put Bama up against anybody in the nation when it comes to DB. If Corey Raymond steps in that room, though, hey, you better tighten up that seatbelt because you got to battle. That dude can go toe to toe with anybody. That's how good he is. And you just got to win over him." Now, the conversation gets interesting, Jonathan. We didn't talk about this before, so I apologize first off, but I get more of an authentic reaction. How do you think this fits into everything? Because Desmond Ricks reclassified from 2024 to 2023. How does he fit into this whole picture? Because there were some Florida fans thinking they might be able to land McClain and Ricks, but could Miami spoil the party mega and get both?
Neither.
Neither.
Ricks, yeah. I feel like Alabama's in the mix for Ricks more than what probably people realize.
Oh, they're certainly in the mix.
So now, here's the thing. I feel like, and this is just my personal opinion, I feel like the sell to McClain was, you're going to be our guy. Like, you're going to be the guy. I do feel like he is the day one starter, most likely there. Just, whether he's a corner 2 or 1, I don't know, but I feel like he's definitely going to be on the field. There's no doubt in my mind about that. Now, how willing is, or what is Mario Cristobal trying to sell here? Is he selling, I'm going to bring in a bunch of guys and you guys are going to compete, in the first big recruiting class for him? Or will it be I need to get certain positions, certain guys there, and then move on from that? You know what I mean?
Good point.
It's going to be hard to outsell Florida in that position because a lot of Florida's biggest, Corey Raymond, number one, but their biggest prospects they brought in lately have been in the safety position. We're talking about Kamari Wilson and these guys. So you have a lot of space to work with at the cornerback position. So in my opinion, it's either going to be Alabama or Florida. I give most likely Florida the lean a little bit right now. Alabama close, but I don't see how he works in with Miami down there with what's there. But at the same time, I didn't know how Cormani McClain was going to work his way down there in the first place.
And that's why I posed the question, right? Because it looked like it was honestly, and this is the interesting thing. I'm not going to lie to you. And I've been very forthright to those of you that have watched any videos about Cormani McClain before, and we've commented back and forth. I thought Miami was probably in number 3 position.
I did too. Yes.
I'm going to be very forthright. Now, one thing before I let you out of here, man, I want to talk about Miami's class as a whole. 24/7 says they have 2 5-stars. Miami fans, I'm about to make you very happy. I think you got 3 5-stars. And this is not novel. This is not a novel opinion from me. I have said since Jaden Wayne committed to y'all, I called him a 5-star in that video. Y'all have to understand. I watched him play on 7-on-7s. I've seen what he can do, even not lining up a defensive end at tight end. He is a 5-star athlete. Your class is looking really good. And there's still some guys. Jonathan, how do you think this class ends up? Because one of the things I was telling you before we got rolling, they're the only recruiting class in the top 10 to be there with less than 20 prospects.
Look, to sum it up, Miami should be back in the mix for the ACC next year to some degree, right? I really do believe that. I do believe that they'll be competing against Clemson at a very high level. And I believe Cristobal is going to sell this on we're the underdog until we take out Clemson, which is going to work to his advantage, in my opinion. Because once again, what are you selling? You're selling culture. You're selling a swagger. You're selling an attitude to these players. And the attitude is if he's smart, and I feel like he's using it to his advantage, you're coming to Miami because, look, let's be realistic. You want to be a part of this culture, and it's us against the world, just like it has always been with Miami, right? So the problem is the people that came before Mario Cristobal for a very long time didn't sell that prospect. And I just feel like, this all wraps together by what happens also at the end of the day with the ACC. We're talking about playoff expansion. We're talking about conference realignment, right? And all this other stuff. And, the only thing they can sell is what's on right now. And what's on right now is there's Clemson winning the ACC every year. Mike Norvell's got Florida State looking better. There's no doubt about that.
Very impressive.
Billy Napier's in the same state, right? So they're doing, in my opinion, better than what I thought they would do this year. In recruiting.
UCF is going to be a bigger brand as well now,
Big
going
12.
Power 5. Yeah,
exactly. So and FAU is always, for some reason, brought in recruits, right? They develop talent to a certain degree. So
what a state.
The state of Florida is just stacked head to toe. And I love this part about Florida. I love when somebody can bolster, we want to be the best of the best, right? We don't want to be the small fish or the big fish in the small pond. No, you want to be the big fish in the big pond, right? So that, in my opinion, is Mario Cristobal's advantage that he has in recruiting right now, us against the world, right? Because everybody expects the golden child, Billy Napier, to do what he's supposed to do at Florida, right? Everybody expects UCF to make some degree of change with the Big 12 coming, making more money, making progress. Everybody expects Clemson to win the ACC. Everybody sees and wants to give Florida State a chance, right, to come back with Mike Norvell. But the one team that's always being doubted, the one team that's always being talked down to is Miami. It's time to go prove that we're beyond that, right? So, and I feel like Mario Cristobal is selling that 1,000% to all these recruits.
He's got to be. Just look at the recruiting class.
That's what I'm saying.
Look at the recruiting class. It is Francis Mauigoa, Cormani McClain, Jaden Wayne. I mean, this recruiting class is very, very nice. And then Raul Aguirre, the linebacker, who, I mean, you turn on his film, guys, he's exciting. He's an exciting prospect, man. Genuinely, if you got any time today, you're coming home from work, you sit down, pop on YouTube, look up Raul Aguirre right after you get done watching this. You're going to have a great time watching his highlights, man. He is a fun linebacker. Great recruiting class.
Robbie Washington, they got dudes.
Yeah.
Up and down. Like, and I think Robbie came out of Miami. So once again, what is Mario Cristobal doing? He's selling Miami to Miami.
And that was the biggest thing that the Florida institutions needed. Something that Florida and Billy Napier are doing well, making sure you're able to win the battles in your state. Because my word, Bama, Clemson, teams have poached the state of Florida for years. Georgia have just taken talent and taken it at will. It's getting a lot more difficult to do so.
Yeah, hands down. I mean, like I said, Lakeland's always been Florida's backyard. They've always, it's like Alabama has IMG.
Or Thompson.
Yeah, or Tom. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, and Thompson. Yeah, that one. Oh, I don't even want to talk about it. It gives me PTSD a little bit. Talking about Hicks and those guys, like, God almighty, man. But yeah.
Yeah, super shock. Maybe the shock of the college football recruiting class thus far of 2023.
Yeah, hands down.
Cormani McClain. I don't know if it'll be topped absent someone in the top 5 or top 10 flipping. This is a huge deal. Jonathan, thank you for joining me today. Where can the people find all of your great content again?
College football, Jonathan Lewis on YouTube, at College FB Lewis on Twitter.
Nice, man. Nice. Thank you for joining me. You'll be featured on the channel again very shortly. We got some stuff planned to do over on your channel. So guys, be sure to subscribe, like, comment down below. Those things are massive, and we'll see you next time. That's it.